perspective presented by the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association, following our few principles of humanism.
We're committed to the use of science and reason for understanding the universe and for solving human problems. We're skeptical of untested claims of knowledge, but we're open to new ideas.
We are concerned with securing justice and fairness in society and in ending intolerance and discrimination. We are committed to the total separation of religion and government.
We affirm humanism as a realistic alternative to the theologies of despair and the ideologies of violence. We reject the concept of an afterlife and believe in living a full and rewarding life here and now.
We value and respect each individual's right to judge and lead their lives according to their own position, as long as it's respectful of other people, living in a free society.
We hope you enjoy today's program and others in the weeks to follow. Hello again. I'm Harry Greenberger, the host for this show, and we thank you for watching us. Today my guest is Wyming P, who is a student and practitioner and teacher of Feng Shui.
Yes.
And before I ask you to describe this whole process, tell us about how you became involved with Feng Shui, okay?
Well, I am double trained. My father was full-blooded Chinese. My mother was from New Orleans. She was a Caucasian lady, and my dad was full-blooded Chinese. And he started teaching me classical Feng Shui. He started teaching me the elements of the Hong Kong tradition when I was 7. And then since 2002, I have been an indoor pupil of a Taiwan master, so I have both sides of it.
What do you mean by indoor?
Indoor pupil is what, it's an idiom for an apprentice, because anytime a master was getting clients or getting students, they would teach a public class, and that was the outdoor class.
Oh, I see.
But then after everybody went home, they'd say, you stay. And then they would tell this small group that remained, that was allowed to remain, one more thing. You know.
Now, was that here in New Orleans, or you had to go elsewhere for that training?
Oh, it was in a series of field trips. The houses won't come to me.
Okay.
We analyzed different buildings, and then we would present them on the last day of the field trip, and then the teacher would come up at the end and say, there's one thing that none of you mentioned, and so this is what I want to
All right.
add.
So then you go through, what, years of that kind of indoor training?
Absolutely.
And you're working towards some sort of, what, certification, or what, how does that work?
Yes. After about 20 years, we know enough about large complexes of buildings to go out in teams of 5. They cannot let us make a mistake. They have to train us so carefully and test us so carefully, because if we're on a team of 5 working for an Asian corporation, if you ever make a mistake, they will never hire that particular union again.
I see. They can't afford a mistake.
Yes, those stingy executives are not paying this because it's a belief. They pay it because their workers stay in top form 3, 4, 5 hours, basically until they get hungry.
Now, that kind of advanced education by someone going to a traditional university can cost a lot of money.
And this has cost me a lot of money, yes.
Well, I didn't know whether it was, whether they were just doing it for the cause, or whether your students do have to pay for it.
Oh, yeah, they have to pay for it.
So then at some point, you met all of the requirements and you became what, licensed, or what happens then?
Well, after about 20 years, what happens is that you are given a pin to show that you're a member of that union, and then when they have a client, they'll send you out in teams of 5 to work for that client.
I see.
Yeah.
But you're talking about teamwork there, but you can work as an individual.
Yes, I'm working as an individual
now.
now.
And you have something that says you are authorized and certified to do that.
Yes.
All right. I'm just trying to establish your credentials,
Yes.
and which I think we have done.
Yes.
Now, tell our audience, what is Feng Shui?
That's a very good question, and then there are several ways to answer it, because the system developed organically over a period of centuries? One good way to answer it is that it's the study of how each building acts as a filter for the energies in nature, for light, for heat, for fresh air, stale air, and for something that the ancient Chinese called qi.
Qi?
Yeah, fresh qi and stale qi.
C-H-I-Qi?
C-H-I, qi.
Okay.
Now, martial artists will tell you that qi is actually an experience that you get when you practice. The study of the Chinese healing arts is actually more like music, because when you're taught by somebody and you practice, you get better at it. If you've ever had a Chinese massage,
Which I have not.
what the masseur does is they massage the acupuncture meridians, and they're squeezing something out of those meridians, like somebody squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, and your whole body is just totally relaxed except your hands and your feet, which become hypertonic. They become very tight. And the last thing they do before they finish is they massage the hands and the feet, and they'll take out a vapor, or they take out a liquid, and they put it into something that they've prepared to contain it, and then the hands and the feet are relaxed.
All right. Now, is that in any way related to Feng Shui?
Yes, because it's stale energy. That's why I brought it up.
Oh, okay.
One of the
Now-
things we do in Feng Shui is we help to filter the stale energy out of a building, an office, a shop, and we try to usher in the fresh energy. Feng Shui is one of the 8 healing disciplines that came from the medicine men in ancient China. There were 8. And each one of them studied the path of fresh and stale energy through some thing in nature. You know, acupuncture is one. The martial arts are one. Chinese tonic herbs are one. And so that's one good way to think of what Feng Shui is. It's the study of the path of fresh and stale energy through places where people spend time.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
you have mentioned and talked about buildings,
Yes.
but don't you also go, like, I guess, inside buildings?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And tell us more then about what it is you do with these buildings in the interiors. What is it that you do?
Yes. What we do is we recommend placements so that whatever magnetism is in the building is going to help the blood circulation of the people there, so that the lighting in the building doesn't make people tired, so that when people are using that building, the layout of the building, the traffic patterns don't confuse them and make them unable to access their knowledge. It's really an application of physics. We were required to study physics.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when you mentioned that, and of course physics is a science,
Yes.
and as you know, our secular humanists, we use science, logic, reason,
Yes.
to determine what is valid and what should be part of our lives.
Yes.
And we don't take things just on faith. We want to
Absolutely.
see some kind of evidence of success, or
Yes.
that things work out the way we're told they're going to work out.
Absolutely.
And so
We were taught through
because
experience. Yeah.
our philosophy is it's the only life we're going to get, and so we should live a full, rewarding, good life,
Yes.
and not prevent other people from doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
So if Feng Shui can contribute to a full life for us.
Absolutely. The original research for houses was done to actually help Chinese physicians. Because if you're taking good medicine, going to a good doctor, and to give you a dramatic contrast, you're living next to a busy highway and you smell the exhaust and you hear the traffic all the time, you will get well slowly. On the other hand, same doctor, same medicine, you're living next to a beautiful body of water and you smell the flowers and you hear the birds singing, you'll get well very quickly.
All right. Now, if you have, either you have an existing building or a home, or you're planning to have one, what do you do to situate it favorably?
That's a very good question. There are three things missing from all the books in English. I have to pause a minute and give you a little bit of background.
Okay.
What most people think of as feng shui is not what I do. What most people think of as feng shui was invented in 1986 for people that didn't want to study like an architect. They didn't want to study math or geometry. There was a great master who came to America, and he was interviewed by a famous magazine writer, published in big magazines. And suddenly he had many people that wanted their homes analyzed, many people that wanted to take classes. But these were sort of New Age people. They didn't know they'd have to work. So when he got into the mathematical side of it, they threw up their hands. And rather than let them walk off and not have anything, he said, all right, I'll give you something you can do. So he invented a system of hanging wind chimes and different good luck things in different directions. That is what I don't do. Feng Shui is a study of filtration. It comes from a book that was written in the 4th century, that name, by a great master. And in that book, he said, Qi, the energy in the air, rides on the wind and stops at the edge of water. It rides on the wind and stops at the edge of water. And so that gives us one of the ways we can look for the way that energy goes into an area, and one of the ways we can see how it gets trapped. I should tell you my flying saucer story. You will like it.
All right.
When I first moved to California, and I talked with some classmates and was introduced to a very nice lady who was a divorcee, and she was having trouble with her job, and her son was having trouble in school. She had a teenage boy because they couldn't sleep well at night. They had, and so I went to their house. It was a very nice house, and I saw, it was a nice neighborhood. I wonder what's wrong with this house. It looks okay to me. I always go through the house twice. The first time is to see how everything is connected, how the doors are connected, how the house is filtering the energy, how the outside feeds energy into the windows and doors, light, heat, and qi. And I went outside and I started looking up and looking up.
And you saw a flying saucer?
No, I saw a 50-foot antenna. Her neighbor was a ham radio operator, and he had built a 50-foot antenna in a neighborhood of one-story homes. So I turned to this lady and I said, have you been having strange dreams? There's usually one sentence in any consultation where the client just starts telling me their whole life's history. She had lived in that house 18 years, and for 18 years she had had vivid, color, three-dimensional experiences of being kidnapped by spacemen and forced into their craft and lifted above the earth and made to bend and twist and turn and squirm. And I said to her, my heart went out to her because she had spent her money for 18 years going to a psychiatrist. And I said, that isn't you, it's that antenna. You should have seen the look on her face when she realized she wasn't losing her mind. And so I didn't have the habit then that I have now of getting photographs and looking at people to analyze the relative strength of their internal organs before I get there. So I told her I wanted her to put a bush between her bedroom window and the antenna, and that would slow this influence down a little bit.
It's coming through the window, you're saying?
Yes.
All right.
And then I recommended positions for the beds, the desk, the computer, the piano, any place where they were going to spend a lot of time. If you don't spend much time there, it doesn't matter much. And then I went home and I analyzed her body type to see if she could stand a buildup of the energy on her side if she placed water. You've got to be careful with water, because some bodies can tolerate certain atmospheres and some bodies cannot tolerate certain atmospheres. So if you're blocking stale energy from the radio antenna with water, you have to make sure you can stand a buildup of what's on your side.
Well, when you're through, I want to talk to you about water, but go ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, because Feng is wind and shui is water, and that's the name of this discipline. And this is the reason, because it turned out from the analysis I did that her body could stand a buildup.
Okay.
So when I saw her at our friend's party the next week, I said, how are you doing? Well, I'm doing better at my job. I'm getting some sleep. How's your son doing? He's doing better at school. He's getting some sleep. Okay, what about the dreams? Because if something's missing, I want to know. And she said, well, I'm still having some dreams, but they aren't as many, and they aren't as scary. And I said, I want you to get the biggest fountain or the biggest fish pond you can and put it in a straight line between your bedroom window and that antenna. And that night, sir, the dreams stopped. 18 years of UFO nightmares stopped. And she was so grateful, she told me anytime I was giving a speech in Orange County, if I let her know a couple of weeks in advance, she'll come and say what this did for her. But this is not anything, this doesn't require a belief. In fact, she didn't know it was going to work.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes, it's because it changed the filtration. The vapor from that water blocked the waves from the antenna.
You mentioned Water's Edge.
Yes.
My home on Bancroft Drive,
Yes.
my residential lot, backs up to Bayou St. John. I have a brick retaining wall.
Yes.
And waterfront, the edge of the water.
Yes.
Am I in some kind of danger?
I can't tell without seeing your place, but you look pretty healthy to me.
Well, I mean, being at the edge of water, it can either be helpful or harmful. Is that what you're telling me?
Depending on what side the fresh or the stale air is on. You know, if the stale air is on the opposite side of the water is protecting you. If it's on your side, then it's the stale air is building up and not crossing the water.
Okay, well, I guess you would have to come out and do a study to answer that question.
Yes.
All right, now I have some other I have questions
Yes.
for you.
I do have something I need to
Go ahead.
say to finish this. I have two things I need to say.
Go ahead.
The first thing is that there's another chapter to this story. She got real enthusiastic and said, oh, I love this Feng Shui stuff. And she didn't want anything to fall into that fish pond that she bought because she didn't want to have to clean it. She was working. She wanted to go back to school. So she got a big cabana umbrella and put it right next to it to keep the leaves from falling in. And that night, the nightmares came back.
I see.
Yeah.
She prevented the energy from...
She prevented the vapor from forming a shield for her. If she had asked me, I would have told her.
Okay.
So the master in the 4th century who wrote that book that said Qi rides on the wind and stops at the edge of water never saw a 50-foot antenna. But he gave us a principle we could use to help people deal with new things that people invent. The second thing I want to mention is there are 3 things missing from all the books in English. And this goes back to what I mentioned about the simplification they did in 1986. Number 1, they don't have a thorough system for analyzing the surroundings of a home or an office or a business. And if you don't analyze the surroundings, you're not doing it. You're just rolling the dice.
Okay.
Because it's the surroundings that feed light and warmth and electricity and
Into
magnetism
the building.
into the windows and doors. Number 2, they don't have a thorough way of understanding the body types of different people, because different people can stand different things. And people are 1/3 of the energy in any house. If you put a different family in the same house, it feels different when you walk in there. You know?
Okay.
Thirdly, they don't quote from the journals that were kept in Chinese families for generations about what happened to unusual buildings and unusual pieces of land. In the modern world, we took physics in a different direction. But we also don't study anything usually that takes more than 3 or 4 years because we want to write our thesis, our dissertation, and get our degree. In the ancient world, families would start a journal and the great-great-grandfather would say, you know, this happened the year of the drought, that happened the year of the flood. And they'd start recording this and they'd pass it down to the great-grandfather, the father, the son, the grandson, the great-grandson.
They had more patience in those days than we do now.
Well, we
want quick answers.
Yes, they were willing to carry on research that had been begun years before, and they were passing it on, even though they knew they would never finish. They passed it on to descendants. So they could see the effects in different kinds of weather on the same house, the same piece of land.
Okay, now you are aware that there are skeptics who say Feng Shui is just, fancy, it's a con game.
That is because of the 1986 method. They invented a system of hanging good luck charms in 8 directions because people didn't want to do math.
Now, I have material that I got out of the internet.
Sure.
And this section was called Feng Shui Practice Today. And it says, It is not always looked at as a superstitious scam, which he said is not always looked at. It is sometimes.
Yes.
It says, many Asians, especially people of Chinese descent, believe it is important to live a prosperous and healthy life, as evident by the popularity of Fu Lu Shu in the Chinese communities. What is that connection?
I don't know what that is, because every word in Chinese is one syllable and it has 5 tones.
Well,
so.
anyway, but it does say that they consider it important to live prosperous and healthy lives, which we secular humanists also do.
Let me give you an example, sir. I can give you an example of how Feng Shui helps people. We don't study in the modern world the impact of shapes on people's ability to access their knowledge. Now, most stores that you go into are rectilinear. They are a rectangular room, and they have aisles parallel to one of the walls. And you go in there, I go into a rectilinear store, and I can remember what I went in there to buy.
Okay.
Now, in order to be original and to get published in magazines, a lot of people have designed unusual rooms, and they don't realize they're making people forget.
Okay.
There are some stores where all the aisles are 45 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to make it original, but I walk in there and I can't remember most of what I went in there to buy. I might remember the first item on the list. And I always remember when I walk out the door. Now that is not, that's experience.
Okay.
I mean, if the room scrambles your indexing system for accessing your knowledge, you won't be able to function efficiently.
I hear what you're saying. Let me bring up a few other things.
Yes.
This says, in recent years, a new brand of easy-to-implement DIY, meaning do-it-yourself, Feng Shui, known as symbolic Feng Shui, has been popularized. What is that?
I don't do that. That was from the 1986 method.
That's where you say that the people using this are
Yes.
misusing the concept.
Yes.
All right. Let me go on from there.
Yeah, what I do requires math and geometry.
All right. Now, to support the people who say, this is not all fantasy, I get this out of the internet.
Sure.
Even Disney acknowledged Feng Shui as an important part of Chinese culture by shifting the main gate to Hong Kong Disneyland. You're aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
All right. Estate mogul Donald Trump hired a Feng Shui master to analyze Trump Towers. Or were you aware of that?
Yes, I was aware of that. And he did everything she told him except change the letters in his logo.
Well, I think he couldn't very well do that. But there was some problem with the letters?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that analysis. I just read a few things in the
All right.
news.
So it says here, when the principles are appropriately applied, Feng Shui has been seen to elicit the profound experience of magic, mystery, and order in American life.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Let me say this. Feng Shui is what they would call, I'd like to use a metaphor. It's what they'd call in the military a force multiplier.
Don't
In
know
other
what
words,
that is. Go ahead.
Yeah, what Feng Shui does is it enhances what you do. It doesn't work miracles for you. It enhances what you do. If you sleep in a room that has better air, then you put in high efficiency rest hours. If you work in a space that helps you to access your knowledge, you put in high efficiency work hours. If you exercise in an area that has better air, then you're putting in high efficiency workout hours. So it's an enhancer of whatever it is you're doing, but you can't just set it up and not do anything.
Are you saying that in general, the population could, almost all or maybe everyone, could improve their quality of life by learning how, getting instructions on Feng Shui?
Absolutely.
That we all could improve and live more gratifying, satisfying lives.
Yes, not only that, we could prevent a lot of the strokes that happen to people. Let me give you an example. I'm going to divulge something for you.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yes. This is something that you don't learn out of books. I was at a party, and I met a judge who had retired, and his speech was very slurred because he had had a stroke. And we were chatting about arrangements of houses, and he said he always felt more comfortable if the head of his bed was pointing toward the north. And this is something that no feng shui master would ever countenance, because the earth has a north and a south pole. And we have a lot of metal in the human body. All of our red corpuscles contain iron. Okay. So if you lie down on a bed with the head toward the north, of course, if you're just taking a nap, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, the difference is trivial. But if you're going to sleep 7, 8, 9 hours with your head toward the north, it's going to accelerate the flow of red cells toward the brain, and it's going to decelerate the flow of red corpuscles away from the brain, and so it's going to put pressure on any blood vessels that are a little bit fragile. So in a young person, it doesn't make quite so much difference, but in an older person, it increases the chances of having a stroke. And this man always slept with the head of his bed to the north. I have helped. I have one client who was a singer on Broadway, and I went to do her house a second time after she had a stroke. And her employees had moved the head of her bed to the north, and one of the first things I did was I turned it. I'm probably talking too long.
Well, we got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
But you just have worried me, because when you talked about that, the head of my bed is facing north.
Well, then it would be advisable to move it. I can't tell you which direction would strengthen you unless I look at your
bed. I could put my head at the other end.
Yeah, I can't tell you which direction it should go unless I look at your house, because I don't know how the magnetism works.
Let me ask you this. You know, Donald Trump and Disney can afford all of that. Now, we're not allowed to sell anything on this show, but is your kind of service, is that affordable for people?
I think so. I think
so.
All
right. So they contact you, and what, you survey the situation and quote them a price, or how does that work?
Well, what happens is we make an appointment over the phone, and I ask them about their square footage, and I ask them whether they have a condo or a townhouse or a house standing on its own lot, because each one is a little bit more work. And then I quote them a price, and we make an appointment. I show up, I go through the house twice, and I not only recommend the placement of furniture, I recommend adjustments of the landscaping in their yard, but even if the space is very small, we can recommend the placement of objects to filter the air. But from what I just told you, I mean, that's an example of physics. That isn't an example of somebody believing in something.
I hear what you're saying.
It's a phenomenon. Physics is known for years that we have iron in our bodies, but they didn't put 2 and 2 together about preventing strokes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been educational and interesting talking to you, and we've got about a minute to go. And I'd like to give you that time to say whatever you would like to say to our audience.
Every object in the physical world is a filter for the healing energy in nature. And just like you can change the filtration of your coffee pot to get the kind of coffee you want, you can change the filtration of your home or your office or your shop to get the kind of energy that your body can use for the kind of work you're doing that year.
Thank you. And thank you, folks, for watching our show. We hope you'll be with us often.